Happiness is beautiful, it's a kind reality. Happiness is the highest good, happiness is free. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.
Welcome. I'm glad you're here. I'm really happy you're here. Well, if you haven't joined us before, welcome to the Happiness Show. I'm Lionel Ketchy, and I'm here with George Ortega. And as always, we're happy to talk about happiness because happiness is, always has been, and always will be the point of it all. Today, we're going to be talking about happiness and the Department of Happiness. What is the Department of Happiness? I'm glad you asked. Okay, George. This is something new. Nobody ever heard of the Department of Happiness, right?
Oh yeah, okay, here's the idea. The idea is that our government's purpose, the reason we have government is so that we as a people can be as happy as possible. Like they're supposed to provide the greatest happiness for the greatest number. Mm-hmm. And this is a utilitarian philosophy. You know, it's grounded in history. Mm-hmm. And the idea is it's not just for a few, for the powerful, the wealthy, but for everyone. So, all right, the concept is that right now there are 14 federal departments, executive departments, transportation, commerce, military, etc. Mm-hmm. And you know, considering that happiness is the point of life, it's the point of all of our lives as individuals and collectively, and the point of government, we should definitely have a federal Department of Happiness that measures our happiness and is entirely devoted to helping us become happier.
Well, I think it's interesting. I guess a lot of questions come to mind as we propose something like this, or even, I guess right now, you know, we're not talking about it. There's no bill in Congress. But as you and I have talked about this, you know, I got to start by saying that my first thought, and I forgot, I don't know who said it. I don't know if it was Thoreau, but the quote comes to mind, that government governs best that governs least of all. And I'm not proposing that they take over our happiness or tell us, you know, how to run happiness, but to consider it important enough to look into, to support as they would education, and to support, because if we can understand that happiness is virtue, it's goodness, it could cut down on crime, it could cut down on, well, I want what you want, I'm not going to work for it, I'm just going to take it, that kind of thing. Because after all, the only reason we want something that somebody else has got is because we think that's going to make us happy, and then we find out it doesn't. So if we start to learn the dynamics of happiness and how important it is in the idea of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, then I think with that perspective in mind, happiness and government could be, you know, like peanut butter and jelly. It could work.
Yeah, I mean, as individuals, we're constantly saying this on the show, as individuals, we should be focusing on happiness, you know, in whatever we do throughout our days, you know, because happiness is the point of whatever else we do, mm-hmm. right? So that same principle applies to us as a people, collectively, as a society, and as a government. I mean, the amazing thing with happiness, I mean, we talk about, like, whether government should be very involved in our lives or not.
Right.
Happiness is so easy to achieve through training. I mean, this could be extremely uninvasive. I mean, and there are many ways to achieve happiness through different kinds of training. They could do it through schools. And you know, you raised a very good point, though. We don't want anyone, the government, scientists, anyone, saying, well, in order to be happy, you have to have this, or you have to do it this way or that. We say on the show, and it's true, that there are better ways than others to achieve happiness, for example, ethically. You don't want to achieve your happiness at the expense of others. Mm-hmm. But again, we don't want government saying that, you know, being the authority, well, you know, we say that this is happiness, this isn't.
Well, George, for example, government is involved with running our school systems, and there's more and more knowledge about the fact that knowledge isn't enough. And that's being brought out in books like Emotional Intelligence and Working with Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman and other books. Martin Seligman is addressing this very thing in Positive Psychology is what he's labeled it. Goleman has labeled it Emotional Intelligence. So that there's more to happiness than just, the words happiness. It's a quality of life, quality of living, and it's very, very, very simple. But it's simple, yet it's not common sense. And I think that's what we're talking about. If it's so darn simple, how come it hasn't become common sense yet? And I think that's where we'd like government to be smart enough to help us understand something this simple and something this beneficial.
Yes, yeah. And as a matter of fact, I mean, fortunately, it's common sense for some of us. Fortunately, about 20% of us of the population, 20% of us are actually 85% happy or happier, which is, it's encouraging because, I mean, if 20% of us are very happy, then the rest of us can certainly be very happy. And I mean, you brought up the point of schools. And I mean, that's the perfect place to teach happiness. I mean, like, sure, we could learn it as adults, but when you consider that the purpose of school really is to prepare children to really get the most out of life, to enjoy life. Exactly. Yeah. And unfortunately, throughout tradition, the last couple of hundred years, however, schools have focused just on this academic education or intelligence. And, it's ironic because, I mean, like, the studies show that becoming more educated is not going to make you happier. You can have 5, 10 degrees, PhDs. The very intelligent among us aren't more happy than the less intelligent, unless, of course, it's emotional intelligence that you're referring to. So, I mean, schools, I mean, if for the government to get, this Federal Department of Happiness mandating that schools teach our children, as a part of their standard curriculum, to be happy, you would be helping them, you would be helping their parents.
Yes, and well, I'd love to see it in schools. I've done some work with schools and principals, and I just love to do more of it because kids take very readily to this. They're not that far removed from happiness already, and before they get completely away from it, I think it's the time for them to learn about it, George, I know you and I talked about prisons, and that's a shocker, happiness in prisons, but the benefit, they're called correctional institutes. Now, what are we doing to correct anything? All right, we're locking them up, we're punishing them, we're taking out revenge, but wouldn't it be nice if they really could be rehabilitated, reconditioned in a sense, and, all right, whether you put them back on the street or not, at least make them more human, make them more compassionate, make them kinder, make them understand that there is more to life for them to understand, because they didn't understand that, and that's the reason they're in prison. So maybe now's the time for them to learn it, and if they learn it, maybe those who get out could really teach that to others in the community, that, something, what got me in there wasn't worth it, and now I can tell you for sure that happiness is really what we need to concentrate on. Something like that could also take a grassroots effect.
Lionel, that is such a great point. And just when you say that the people who were in prisons got there because they were going about seeking happiness in wrong ways.
Right.
That is so on target. And also, I mean, happiness research over the last 40 years has demonstrated that as people become happier, as we become happier, we become better people. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, to teach, I mean, this I'm sure would be a controversial issue with some people, because I imagine some people would say, well, we shouldn't be teaching prisoners to be happy. They're supposed to be punished or something,
sure.
Right? But, once you get over that kind of like vengeful attitude,
mm-hmm.
for society, I mean, like, a part of the problem that we have is the recidivism. I mean,
mm-hmm.
a person goes to prison, they stay there for a certain while, they go out, they do the same thing, and that's not good for anyone. That's not good for us.
Yes, you're right. And George, I thought of you yesterday when I was listening to the State of the State address by Governor Rowland in Connecticut. And what does he talk about but prisons? He's, and he has my ear. And he goes on to mention a woman who's 70, and he said, I'm sorry I mentioned her age, but I want to let you know. There's a woman who's been, I don't know for how long, but on her own, She's been going to prisons and really talking about her faith and supporting the prisoners with her love and faith and devotion with them. And he acknowledged her for being the kind of individual that has dedicated their lives to doing this, to supporting prisoners. Now, it's interesting that the governor of Connecticut, who also is facing some problems, with impeachment and other things, made it a point to talk about the fact that the people who are doing things for prisoners must be acknowledged. And I think it would be wonderful as we all start to learn that, okay, when we try to help others, whether they're incapacitated or they're in prison or whatever the case might be, old, rich, poor, whatever, and we could offer our help to them in ways of being friendly and kind and compassionate, we would benefit as well. And I could go on with prisons because I've done happiness work in prisons, and I got to tell you, it's one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. In fact, I want to share one thing. I'm a wise guy in prisons, and I've gone to some pretty tough prisons where you get completely searched and you're in with hardened criminals, murderers, and everybody else. And I get locked up with a group of them who want to meet me, who want to hear what I have to say. And I kind of rile them up by saying, okay, you're here for 3 hours, and you're not getting away from me. People say, well, what if I have to go to the bathroom? Well, let me know, and I'll give you special permission. But I love an audience of prisoners because they can't get away from me. They're trapped. They're in prison. But I'm kidding around with this, but the fact is that as tough as these guys are starting out, just about every one of them would come up at the end, give me a hug. They didn't want it to end. They really understood that when they got locked up again in their prison cell, that they actually had the choice to be happy given the situation. They couldn't change the circumstances, but they could really learn to make the best of it. And that was a big thing. That was a big thing.
All right, yeah. And also you brought up the point that, we have, for example, ministers, the clergy going into prisons. And so, basically the clergy is using goodness. They want the prisoner to become good,
yes,
as a way of helping society and the prisoner.
Exactly.
So bringing happiness into prisons would be the same thing. All right, now, what we should also, begin to talk about is the idea of, why don't we have a federal Department of Happiness right now?
Well, somebody doesn't think, somebody's not becoming aware of it as a need.
Yeah, also, in a certain sense, as individuals, we tend to value money, wealth, extraordinarily. We value education, power, success, all these things, right? Now, again, the 40 years of happiness research, 4 decades, demonstrates these things are very uninfluential to our happiness. They hardly matter. And so that basically it's the same thing. Just as individuals we're seeking happiness in the wrong ways, as a government, we're seeking happiness in the wrong ways. Why does our government do anything? We have politics. These politicians want to get elected. So if we as a people say to them, listen, money's great, education, healthcare is great, but our happiness is what's most important. Once we get a movement going about, explaining that and pretty much demanding from them that, they address this because it's our most important goal, they would, out of necessity, have to address it. And I mean, these politicians are in it for. I believe they're, most of them, perhaps all of them, are sincere in their work. They want to make our country better.
Sure.
And so that, if we take the lead and say, listen, happiness is what it's about. We need a Department of Happiness. I think they'd listen.
Well, you're right, but politics doesn't always move very quickly on these things. In fact, in my town, in Fairfield, I had met with the first selectman and had offered the idea of putting up signs that reflect happiness as you drive through Fairfield. And the benefit of it would be to relax people so they don't get stressed out or run people over, and get into the idea that they could drive through Fairfield, even if it's bumper to bumper, and enjoy the day as they're going through. It's a friendly town, it's a great town. Why turn it into a chaotic state of frenzy? And that hasn't happened yet, nor were there any promises for it to happen. But there's another example of the fact that people don't understand the benefits of happiness. It's the understanding that needs to be in place first in order for the laws and rules and politicians to get on board. But I like what you said, George, about we're the voters. We can make them.
Yeah, you're right, and I think you're exactly right about the understanding. I think for the government to take this on, we as the people have to understand it. Because once we understand it, either through individuals, happiness clubs, happiness groups, introducing happiness to business, then you know, a lot of times happiness, our federal government doesn't lead, but actually follows what we want. So
very true. Actually, we're having our happiness club meetings in Fairfield at the town hall. So you know, we're having it in the middle of the politics. So that would be a great place to start.
But yeah.
Great. Great. Now, George, you also know something about Great Britain and other countries that have been really incorporating these political situations.
We don't have much time, but let me just briefly touch on this. The happiness movement is starting worldwide. Great Britain has commissioned, the Prime Minister's cabinet or something commissioned, it's an unofficial study, but nonetheless, it's a government-wide study on how Great Britain could implement policies designed specifically to increase the happiness of the country, okay? Of the kingdom. And even better, this is like so ambitious, of the country of Bhutan, you know, in their official government policy has decided to consider happiness as important as economic prosperity. Okay, now the reason they do this, the happiest country in the world right now is Nigeria.
Yes.
Followed by Mexico, Venezuela, El Salvador, and Puerto Rico. These are not rich countries. They've realized that it's not about money, it's about happiness.
So the quality of life has more to do with happiness than it does with money.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or at least a big chunk of it.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, like, in general with countries, there's kind of like a drift. The richer the country in general, the happier. But, for example, you have Japan, who's a very rich country compared to a lot of other countries. They're not that happy. Ireland is not very rich, but they're very happy.
Now, do you know, well, I think I know, but do you know where the United States is on that? One of 30 countries?
Sure.
Is it 15th?
Yeah, 15, 16, yeah.
15. You know what the last one is? I think 30th is Armenia.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And, well, you know, it's an emerging country, and they've got economic trouble, but, boy, happiness could work, too.
Cool.
Yeah. That's great. Well, what do you think? It's about time.
Oh, yeah.
We're about that time. Well, I'm so glad you joined us. If you want more information, check out www.happinessclub.com. And now we're going to go to Amy Branch and...
We going? Hi there. Andrew Bancroft here to talk to you about happiness. I've been happy 10 minutes strong. I think it's working out for me. It's going to be... I lost it. Starting over. 10 seconds strong, happy guy, Andrew Bancroft.
So, thanks Andrew for being on the show.
No problem, Amy. Thanks for having me.
Sure thing.
All right.
I'm going to continually smile the whole time.
Me?
Yeah, no, I am. And hopes that you smile the whole time too.
I'll smile when I'm happy, but I'm happy now. So
oh, you are.
Here it is.
On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, or most happy, how happy are you?
I'm being like ecstatic.
10's just most happy.
7?
That's pretty good. What's missing?
Not bad.
Department of Happiness?
The Department of Happiness is missing. I feel like they could help boost it to at least an 8.5 or a 9.
At least, just with a little effort.
Yeah. I feel it's high time that this government actually dedicates a little bit of time and money and effort to ensuring that our pursuit of happiness is not just a passive hobby, but an active obsession.
Do you think that they're doing anything right now?
No. Personally, I think the government is actually has something closer to the Department of Unhappiness.
I can see that.
A little more so than an actual Department of Happiness. Neither really exist, but I think that they've incorporated unhappiness into a lot of their oppressive policies now, and a lot of the departments that would be trying to fight for people's rights and things that might lead them to be happy are actually suffering the most.
So let's fantasize about the Department of Happiness. About the Department of Happiness. One more time, about the Department of Happiness.
Department of Happiness. Our uniform is a smile. I like that.
Perfect. Yeah.
Our song is a laugh. It sounds like a magical place.
Yeah.
Magical place. Giant building, no marble. It's all made of chocolate. Dark chocolate.
I like that idea.
And it's refrigerated, so on hot days you can still walk in and not get your shoes stuck in the lobby
What a good
floor.
idea. Yeah. So what kind of people would work at the Department of Happiness?
You
Me?
would work there. Amy Branch, Department Vice President.
I could probably be happy being the vice president of the. Why not the
I
president?
think so.
Forget
I
it.
think that's reserved for like cartoon characters or
I get
little
it, I
kids.
get it.
Maybe a little kid. That's who should be in charge of the
Yeah.
Department of Happy.
I'm so the mission of the Department of Happiness would be.
Well, I think it'd probably be linked to that not focused upon aspect of our Constitution, the pursuit of happiness, and maybe trying to spread happiness throughout the land by actually improving people's accessibility to happiness and the things that make them happy.
What do you think makes people happy?
It's a good question. There's a lot of things. I think people realizing their self-worth and potential. I mean, there's a lot of things when people are like, what things make you happy? It's tough because it's already a loaded question because the word things is there. And people think of things as objects sometimes. You know, like having a chocolate building would be pretty fat. That'd be nice. But chocolate isn't necessarily the thing that's like, boom, I'm happy because I have chocolate.
You're not everybody, you know, some people are allergic to chocolate.
Exactly. Those people, they don't even want to go near the building of happiness.
No.
That's depressing.
You can't have that.
They'll have to be like a carob wing, you know,
Right.
to the Department of Happiness where they can chill out and meet with the 4th grade president. 4-year-old. But I mean, you know, it's not the cars, it's not the jewelry and those things that I think are actually going to be the focus of a Department of Happiness. I think it's some people have less time to enjoy the things that they might enjoy because they're struggling to get paid even minimum wage, you know, at having good jobs, having health care, having things like that. So maybe one of the first goals of the Department of Happiness could be improving accessibility to just those base, not necessarily comforts, but the things that's
Basic needs.
Yeah, basic needs.
Yeah.
Basic needs for everyone, because I think that would up everybody's happiness a little bit. I think those are the people that are forgotten a lot of times because they're often not the people with a lot of money contributing to campaigns, goes on down the line.
Yeah.
But Department of Happiness is going to need some other kind of funding, some kind of magic
funding?
Yeah, magic happy funding.
Well,
Get
on that
past
note, we'll maybe take over next time.
Yeah, let me out of here.
Thank you.
We're going to
so
send some more
much,
people in
Andrea.
here. Thank you, Amy.
This is Talia. Thank you so much for joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me, Amy.
She is one of the happiest people at this party right now. I can tell you right now, look at that smile. Woo! No. See? So today we're going to talk about happiness and memory and how important it is to have happy memories and think about them. So what did you want to share with our viewers today?
Well, you were asking me before about, happiness and memories and how it all correlates to having a positive vibe in your atmosphere. And, I've just considered what recently have happened with my sister, how she was in a tragic accident and how, everything just falls to the wayside. Even though you've had, negative things that happened to you in your past and, something tragic like that happens, when you bring together and just have a positive vibe and focus on what can positively happen in the future, it really just brings a sense of peace. And I really like how the Dalai Lama says happiness is not comfort, happiness is peace.
Right.
And everybody can find that in their own way. And so
The beauty of happiness is because it is subjective and everyone has a different level of happiness and different things bring different people happiness. So I think that's really interesting and good for everyone because everyone can experience it.
you know, if you just like focus on, you know, what's going to turn your world around, you know, if you're starting to feel gloomy, you know, just know that, you know, there's other tragic things that are happening out there that are bigger than you, bigger than what you're going through, and just kind of see all the good things that are happening. You know, for me and for my family, that's really what got me through my sister's accident. You know, I mean, I couldn't imagine going through something.
67 days her sister was in ICU. 67 days. But she's okay now. She's okay now. Can you share with us some of your own happy memories?
Well, you know, definitely me and my sister, I taught her a lot, you know, and just being together with her in the past summer was a real happy memory, because she's an actress, and I've taught her a lot about singing, and you know, bringing her that kind of confidence and showing her that she, you know, she's going to prevail in that society is really like a happy memory for me. And
do you sing?
I like to sing sometimes. Yeah.
Is there any way we can get you to sing something happy?
I don't know, like what?
Well, what is the song that makes you feel the happiest? Like, my favorite song that makes me feel really happy is "Walking on Sunshine." And so I'm wondering if there's any other song like that for you.
Walking on Sunshine. You know, my mind is blank. My mind is blank.
Oh,
you know?
shoot. All right. Well, if it comes to you in 2
Sitting
minutes.
at the dock of the bay, watching the clouds roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. You know, I just love that song.
That's great. That was great. Thank you so much. Any final thoughts you wanted to share?
The tides, you know, definitely see beaches, see sunsets, enjoy nature, you know, and love life. So
Great. Thank you so much, Talia, for joining us today.
well, thanks for having me, Amy. For sure.
This is Amy Branch signing
Do it
off.
again. Bye.
Join us next week.
Happiness is powerful, it's our underlying need. Happiness is why we live each day. Happiness is destiny. So let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy. Yeah, let's be so very happy.